This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today we have Marco Mendoza. Marco is one of a kind, equipped with a depth of experience gained over 30 years playing for some of the biggest names in rock, as well as contemporary artists. His larger-than-life personality always makes his shows unique. Marco comes from a very musical family and started playing guitar at an early age. Marco is perhaps mostly known for his work with a number of rock bands and artists such as Thin Lizzy, Blue Murder, Whitesnake, Ted Nugent, Neal Schon, Soul Circus, Lynch Mob, Dead Daisies, and The Trio, as well as diverse artists such as Dolores O'Riordan with the Cranberries. Marco lives in Los Angeles, and he's currently touring with a solo band. It's so great to have you on, Marco.
Hi, how are you, Kate?
Good. Thank you so much for your flexibility. And yeah, you're a busy guy, so I'm glad you could squeeze this in.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, how's the weather in Florida?
I'm in New York City. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. The show airs in Florida, so we'll say hello to all of our Florida friends. Yeah. This show is going to air at the end of February, so you can start plugging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. This is February 7th. It's so hard. I've done 3 interviews since I last spoke to you.
Wow.
So it's so hard to put it all together, different time zones and all that. It's good. I'm not complaining. So I have to get my head together. Initially, there's a few things that came that we got changed. We got added to the latter part of the year now for a lot of reasons, logistical and time and all that, the time frame. But right now, I just finished some dates in California with Eric Sardinas, and it was a blast. We did 6-7 shows. We started in, where did we start? We started in Hermosa Beach in California, and then we finished in Las Vegas. And then I did a Music Cares thing at the Canyon Club, which is very cool, filled with, all kinds of artists, friends of mine, and celebrities, et cetera, et cetera. I was given an award in Las Vegas, which is very cool, and a lot of stuff. I mean, it seems like a bit of a blur. January came, and then the NAMM show was another 4 or 5 days filled with some goodies, real cool stuff. What I tell everybody is that the best thing to stay in touch is just go to marcomendoza.com. I think there's a list there where if you sign up, we can send some notices and let you know what's going on, anything new. But I'm starting, right now, I'm on my way to Europe to work and record an album, might be 2 of them. And I was asked to keep it just off the radar. So I'm leaving there on Tuesday and on Monday. And so, it is something exciting, and when we have the time and we're allowed to announce it, we will. I would say in the next 3-4 weeks. I'm starting to work on the new Iconic album that's brewing, which is going to be very exciting, cool stuff. And then for me, my solo stuff begins again at the beginning of. I come back from Europe and I have some dates with Graham Bonnet here in LA. Ramona stage, and then I have Chicago and Detroit. We're trying to add another date as we speak. That's pretty exciting if you know Graham Bonnet, and legendary singer, amazing cat, and I'm excited to go out and do some dates with him and his crew. And then I go back to Europe to do some shows with Adrian Dannenberg, starting in April 4th. So it's like 10 dates in the Netherlands, and then I stay there. I got some more recording, and so on and so forth. Czech Republic, Austria, UK, Ireland. Right now, looking at booking some dates in Germany and all that. So pretty exciting. Stuff. There's always something brewing and cooking, but there's so much, to be honest, Kathy, that's hard. My head is spinning sometimes,
Well, listening to all of your, but listening to your whole schedule, that's a lot. That's really a lot. And
Yeah,
it's a
the
lot
next
of
3
travel. It's not just getting on stage, but it's
travel.
getting from A to B to B to C, all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Stress.
that's where I've learned how to deal with the stress, thank God. But it's just physically draining, you know. And the gigs are, and you hear people and musicians and artists talk about this. You know, we really make a living with all the travel. The gigs are for fun. You
Yeah.
know, we get paid for the travel and the logistics of it all. The gigs are fun for me. I'm always looking forward to getting up on stage and sharing what I have to share, you know, the message, and performing and connecting with a audience. It's one of those things, but it's cool. It's all good. I'm
Oh, yeah.
excited. Like I said previously, the other interview is that I'm still one of those guys. I'm really flattered that I'm on the map. I'm on some kind of radar, that I get a lot of calls, a lot of offers, and situations that are exciting, musically challenging, and creative. And so I try to take it with you know, I appreciate it as much as I can, and I try to feel grateful, you know. And
Yes.
you've heard me say this before, the attitude of gratitude. You
That's
know,
right.
when I'm there, everything works. And whatever fails or whatever doesn't end up happening is for a reason. So a
Correct.
lot of that as well. Right now, a lot of shifting, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
dates moving around, a lot of energy of musicians changing, and et cetera, et cetera. But I stay on course, you know, and I'm moving forward. And yeah, there's a lot of doors opening up right now. Excited.
Yes.
And again, you know, to stay on top of it all, it's important for your listeners to stay in touch at marcomendoza.com, because that's, you know, any changes, any updates. This week we're going to put all the dates together and announce all the dates. So I was just waiting for a few things
Oh,
to come
great.
in.
Yeah.
There's some festivals coming in, and so we're going to start doing that. A little late starting in the year. I like to start, you know, December, January for the up and coming year, but it's been a crazy
Oh,
busy
sure.
3,
Yeah.
4, 5 months for me. Yeah.
But when you were at
So
NAMM, I was following all your social media posts and, you know, all the photographs, and
mhm.
you're really busy.
Yeah. Like I said, and then you know, when I'm home, I tell everybody I'm busiest when I'm home, because not only am I doing music and getting ready and learning and writing and all that, but I'm also home, and you know, my kids are here, my wife. I'm a family guy,
Mm-hmm.
and that keeps me running. You
That's right.
know,
Yeah.
so which is good. It's good. It's okay. You know, I dig it. It keeps me grounded as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But
You're such a stage
what?
performer. You really are. I mean, I watch a lot of your videos. You just have like a presence on stage, and it comes so
Thank you.
natural for you. It's like, you know, it's like the audience is feeding you, because you can see as the camera follows you, how you're reacting to the
Yeah.
audience. But then there's like an internal thing with your connection with, you know, with playing. You know, you could really capture it on film. I could
Yeah.
see it on film. And all of your
Well,
travel,
thank you.
it's really, I mean, it's like you know, you get sucked in by these videos, but you could really see your
Awesome.
love for playing in the videos. You're connecting with the audience, but then you're like into it, you know? And I
Yeah.
could see that you're a guy of self-care, because you can really tell, you know, that you really take care of yourself, and you're very much aware of what's going on. And that really comes out like in your performance and your stage presence. It's really incredible.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you. Nice compliment. I learned a long time ago when I was a kid, and I was before I even started playing, the people that impressed me were the people who were entertainers, the people who were really not only performers, but they would entertain, and either through their music and or their message or their performance, their you know, their presence. They have something special. The people who really impressed me, even before rock and roll, was Billie Holiday. I remember vividly watching her on TV, and something about her spirit that just connected. And she was in New York. I grew up in Mexico, and I saw it, and she really touched me. And from time to time, I try to do that song because it brings me a lot of memories. She's saying, God bless a child. And it brings a lot of good memories. So I try to relive that moment. And I think that's what it is, Kathy. I think emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically, in every possible way we connect, we don't realize how powerful music can be and the message in it. And the energy, I think it goes beyond our understanding, the realm that it speaks in, that it travels in, you know, vibrations and all that. We can get very technical about it, but yeah, that's what it is. And I think, and I'm not always able to do that, unfortunately, because I get, for whatever the reason, because I get busy with my head somewhere else. But when I allow myself to get into that zone, it's almost like it's a black hole, if you will, because there's nothing else exists other than the music. You tap into the music, and then I think the audience will feel that when you're doing that. And I'm getting better at it, allowing myself to just let the music carry me. Most of the time I'm worried about, how am I sounding and this and that. And at the end of the day, the audience sometimes doesn't care.
Yeah, well, I get that. It's the experience for them, you know?
Yeah.
It's a whole experience.
And I think Yeah, and we spoke about it before. I really try, and this is something that I learned with the trio, I try to create something new at every event, my guys, the people that play with me, kind of have a hard time with it sometimes because they like to have a set list. I never write a set list.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm learning to be considerate of them because they have a different way of working. And the reason for that, at least now, I am doing the 3 or 4 first songs. We talk about it, we go there, and then I tell the guys, let me just roll with it and feel the audience, see how we're connecting, and try to pick a song or deliver a song with a message that's apropos for the situation, And every audience, however big or small, is going to be different. The energy in the air is going to be different. So, I try to tap into it, and I think that's what you're aware. That's what you're noticing.
Oh, yeah.
I do get really beat up out there. I physically drained. And I've seen some videos where the performance is compromised, and I'm trying to work on that because that should be the highlight. Everything should be focused on the performance and the delivery and the message and the music, and all this other stuff should come secondary. But with all the travel and all that,
it takes a toll.
I'm not a young cat anymore.
Well, none of us are. But you're dealing with different time zones. You're traveling into different cultures. You're traveling through different airports, and then we had spoken previously, but you're traveling into countries where. We spoke briefly about, the beginning of COVID and everything. I know you have a whole story about that, but you're putting yourselves into different environments where you could pick something up or, so that takes a toll on anyone.
It does. You as well, you've traveled the world.
Yes.
You've experienced that. Imagine doing that. I did an interview and we talked, so how much do you travel? I said, well, last year and the year before, I think I might have flown. Okay. I'm talking airport, flown 50, 60 times.
Wow.
In the whole year, when you think about it.
That's a lot.
People that, they fly around 3 or 4 times around the globe, they feel it and they talk about it. Well, yeah, I get up in the air and I get beat up a little bit. So that's the hardest part of the whole thing. I'm trying to make changes so that it can be easier to get from point A to B without getting all the stress. Airports, the waiting, the whole thing can be pretty stressful. And then with what's going on traveling wise, as your listeners might know, and you might know, it's you show up at the airport and they decided to cancel the flight until the next day. When you have a show that night in a different country, different city, a lot of that going on.
Oh, yeah.
So we learned how to start taking trains. And within Europe, if you plan it ahead, it's pretty cool. It's really available, and so we're doing that. Just to make it easier on the travel. But all in all, it's a great job. How can I complain? I don't need to complain if I sound like I
Oh,
am
no, you're
complaining.
not at all, though. It's just being a human. You're just being human. It's not complaining, You've been playing guitar since you were a little boy. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Tell me all that, because that's the piece of you I don't know.
Yeah, I grew up, long story short, and I can be very long-winded, as you can tell. I'm a communicator. I like to talk. Long story short, my parents separated. My mom was a singer, a professional. She got on the charts there in Mexico. My dad was a lover of music, and he also played clarinet. So we had the big band, Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, Gene Krupa, all that stuff playing at any given moment when I was very young. And then because of my mom, we had all the musicals, musical theater, all the big stuff, Carousel and all that stuff. Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz ended up being a favorite, and South Pacific, on and on and on. So there was a lot of music playing constantly when I was growing up. When they separated and they ended up getting a divorce, my grandma came from Mexico City to help out, because my dad was working a lot. So she brought a piano. She was a piano teacher. And that's when my real interest began, because she started breaking it down on the piano. And I started understanding, and she was a classical pianist. So, I got into the music. I started appreciating music in a deeper way. And we tried doing the piano thing with me. I just didn't I was too scattered. And I couldn't sit down, and anything that's classical requires a lot of energy and time invested, and structure and discipline. And I just didn't have it, So let's just say I started losing interest there after a while, but I got exposed to music in a different way, in a deeper way. Classical music is like that for me. And so then my brother, I was the middle child. My brother got a guitar. He wanted a guitar for his birthday. He got an acoustic guitar. And it was exciting. And I saw him, he came with a chord, Mel Bay, guitar chords. I don't know how many thousands of chords in that book. And he started playing, and then he just, within 2 or 3 weeks, he lost interest again. We were young, 12, 13, 11, I don't know, something like that. So like kids do, you move on, and the guitar started just gathering a lot of dust in the corner. So that's when I realized I started connecting the dots with the guitar and the piano and the chord book. I would grab the guitar and find myself in a little corner somewhere where nobody was around. And I started learning that, with 3 or 4 chords, I could play a lot of the music that was being played on the radio, a lot of it was CCR in those days. They had so many hits.
Yeah.
So boom, I think the flame began there, and the more you learn, the more you like it, the more you enjoy it. And then, I wasn't good at sports, so I became the kid that would bring the guitar to all the sporting events and hanging out by the sideline, taking requests. And it's a great time, because I fell in love with it. I really did. And I found my passion. I was that kid that was really awkward, very insecure, introverted. And, I felt like, I had freckles and I had buck teeth, and very awkward, that stage when we go through that in life. And so the guitar allowed me, it was my friend. It gave me confidence, and it gave me a reason to be confident about myself. So, and all my friends would just encourage me, and that was it, All of a sudden, my brother, who found interest in drums, my father got him a drum set, got me a guitar, electric guitar, and my dad was really cool like that. He saw interest, he would surround us with stuff. So, and then we got together with 2 other brothers, a bass player and a guitar player, and we sang and played, and we started doing little parties, private parties, and school dances and all that. And that was the beginning of my musical career, you know. And
That's
like
great.
anything else, you get recruited. And it was by default because it wasn't like I sat down. A lot of people I know in the business, a lot of my colleagues and friends, they had a clear picture at one point where they said, this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, I think for me, it was just fun. And it became my friend, and it became my sanctuary, my place of connecting to the universe, if you call it, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously I spent more time in it. The more I learned, the more interesting it became. And then I started getting recruited by bigger bands, and so on and so forth. And then I came to the US, and the rest is history, you know. But it's been a great journey, to say the least. Insane. Every time I do interviews, I hear myself talking about where I was and what happened. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's
wow.
interesting. So now having your own family, have you been able to coach and mentor anyone in your family, you know, to follow the musical path like your dad kind of helped you and your grandma?
Yeah, not that I insist on it or encourage it. I surround my kids with instruments. Like my son, who's a professional bass player now, he's had a great career. He's playing with one of the biggest bands in Latin America. They play rock. They call it rock en español, Spanish rock, and they're huge. I mean, they play arenas and stadiums. And Marco, he was living with me, and when he turned 21, I asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and got him a bass. You know, and I saw right away. I saw the spark because he would spend hours and hours on his own. You know, he really showed a lot of interest, and now he's got a career, a great career. It's a delicate thing, Kathy. I
Yeah.
believe, you know. When the piano thing happened with me, my grandma, God bless her, man, she was very much old school in that, okay, if you're going to do this, you got to do it. And you got to dedicate 2 hours a day, and you got to learn this. And my father would come home after work, and he wanted to audition us and hear what we learned that day because we were investing time and energy. And so it's too strict for me, you know. And I never want to do that with any of my kids. I think it's got to come from them. My daughter has a beautiful voice. She's doing gigs here and there, but hasn't really jumped in full on. My son Aaron is also talented. He tried doing the singing thing and writing, and as things would have it, it gets difficult out there, you know. So there is, I think it's in their DNA inherent, and they grew up. I mean, all my kids, you know, have been backstage with the biggest bands ever, Journey and Alice Cooper and Judas Priest, with Thin Lizzy, with Whitesnake. We played with everybody. And so they grew up in that environment. So I really tell myself, I keep my eyes open and see, you know, where there's possibilities. And when there is, I try to encourage them and help them, you know. But it's a delicate thing. I don't want to cross that line where, you know, I talk to them. I said, do you really want to do this? And then I explain to them, if we're going to do this, do it the whole way, you got to dedicate time because that's all I know. You know, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but you got to dedicate time. You got to love it, first of all. And you got to dig it so much that you can't wait to grab the guitar and start singing every little moment that you have available. It's one of those things. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Faith. It's on the cusp right now. She's checking it out, you know. And Max is, I got him a bass, you know, for his birthday a few years back. And he plays for fun with some friends. But it's very laxed. It's not focused. It's just for fun. So I don't see, we'll see what happens. But yeah, you know, they grew up in this environment. So it's up to them. I really feel it's a personal thing. You decide, you know, if this is going to be something you want to pursue. And then when I recognize that, I explain to them, okay, in order to get from point A to B, I suggest you do this, and I can help you whenever I can, you know. But somewhere along the way, you know, they realize that it's there's either too much work involved, or they decided they don't dig it that much, or they're looking for other things, and so they move in and out of it, you know.
Yeah.
I let it happen, let it land where it's going to land, you know. But I would say this: being a musician these days and an artist of any form is very tough, very, very, very tough. At the core of everything, the only thing that's going to allow you to survive and to navigate, you know, the environment is you got to love it. You got to love it with a passion. You can't, you know, you will get rejection and you will get dropped, and you got to get up and keep going, because nothing else makes you that happy, you know?
Yes.
And then in my case, that's what it is. And I've been one of those lucky guys that have been able to make a living off of it for a long time.
Yes.
Something like 85 years.
I don't know about that.
It seems like it. No, for a long time.
Yeah, sure. But, you know, you make a good point, though, because it's, you know, I haven't spent, you know, my whole career in the music business, but I did spend 30 years in the military. And when early on,
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. You have to love it. And if you don't love it, you know it right away. And I used to, you know, I used to speak with soldiers, and I used to say, hey, if this is too much for you, you know, you have to face the reality now. Don't hang in there thinking it's going to get better. It is the way it is today. It's going to be the same way tomorrow. So it's true. It's similar, right?
Yeah, very, very similar. And anything in life, if you want to get deeper about it, you know, the thing that's going to keep you coming back is there's no other thing in this world that gives you that much pleasure. One. Two, you learn how to enjoy it, and it becomes a part of who you are. It's not all that I am, but a big part of who I am. And when I come home, it's very obvious to me when I come home and I totally collapse, right, like I do physically, and my wife lets me just crash and rest and all that, because we've been doing this for a while. So she knows that physically I'm drained. After a few weeks, I really notice a change in my energy.
Yes.
We call it decompression. We decompress, and then I start missing it. And my energy, it just shifts to another place, and I feel out of place and awkward. And so I've learned to do that. I've learned to keep myself involved and engaged in some way or other, even when I'm home resting, you know?
Yes.
So this past week, I've been up really late working on stuff, writing some ideas. It's only, you know, music is like anything that's creative. It's, you open that, you know, that door, and it just, the flood starts coming in. You start getting ideas and lyrics and song ideas, and you get inspired, and it's a vehicle for you to express what you've been through, what you went through that day, that week, that month, something that you feel emotionally or spiritually, and you try to talk about it in a little song, you know. So yeah, it's one of those things that becomes a big part of. I can't imagine. I have to say, we had an opportunity to really experience what the world would be without gigs and music and live performances and the social part of it all. And wow, I don't know about anybody else, but I really went berserk. It was like after 2, 3, 4 months, in the back of our minds, we were thinking this is going to pass, it's going to be done, a couple of months, 3 months at the most. You know, it went for me for like 20 months, 22 months.
That's correct. Yeah.
Almost 2 years. It was crazy.
Yes.
And I don't ever want to go through that. So when the gigs started happening and all that, I learned to appreciate it in a different way, you know. And
during that,
so that's what I'm doing.
During that time, Marco, where, you know, we were under this kind of standstill with COVID, did you find yourself going back and writing more music, or how did you deal with that for the fact that you couldn't perform?
I did. A lot of what I was going through is reflected in the last album, um, New Direction, because I was feeling, I was going through all these emotions and getting in touch with a lot of things. And for me, I don't consider myself, and this is just me, all right? I got everybody fooled, but that's me. I don't consider myself like a singer, a top singer, because I've played with some of the best. I've worked with some of the best singers on the planet. I consider myself a singer. Yes, I'm not up there, and I don't want to be. I don't consider myself a songwriter, but the point that I'm trying to make is when I really am going through something, either spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, that's when things flow for me, writing music, lyrics. And there might not be the best lyrics on, ever, but that's just me. It's me expressing myself at that moment, at that second. And you document it by recording and writing a song, and that's it. I can go back to the first album and understand through my lyrics where I was. Just, I'm that kind of guy, that kind of songwriter. But it's very important for me to be with the right partner, somebody that's really talented, on the other side to collaborate with me, to bounce off. So, the pandemic gave me a lot of content, if you will, a lot of things to get in touch with. And things like, Take It to the Limit. Take It to the Limit was written out of me and Soren, my producer, guitar player, sitting down in the studio for the first time after we've been trying to get together to work on this album, second album. And he was touring nonstop. I was touring nonstop, and we reconvened in Copenhagen, and we just finally sat down after flying all over the place, and we look at each other going, wow, what's up with us? We just take everything to the limit, man. We just push the envelope. We just go and go and go. And we laughed. And that's the thing that sparked. We started with the riff, and the lyrics just came out, and it's just, it's something that I really believe in, living life to the fullest, trying to seize every second, every minute, every day, every month, to live, to do what you can to get the most out of life. And sometimes, and I've been very guilty of this too, I've been very complacent. The pandemic just did a thing for me, and I had to break that off. So that's what it was. Take It to the Limit, and then Shoot to the Stars. It's a saying we've all heard our whole lives about believing in what you want to create or you want to accomplish. And in music, it's, you always have to believe in something. Shoot for the Stars, and Walk Next to You. The ballad came out of a writing session with Doug Aldrich and Tommy Aldrich. Once upon a time, we had a little project that we thought we wanted to do, and that came out of that. And Tommy is a very spiritual cat, and so am I, and that came out of that. Knowing that there's we are always never alone. Whether you believe in God or you're a Buddhist or whatever you are, knowing that there's divine presence next to us, and that's what that song came out of. So my point is, songs come out of life situations, and I try to talk about it. I can also sit down and try to come up with lyrics at the moment with having no relevance, just out of thin air. And I have to say that's really hard for me, and it's not the best because I don't identify with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that came out of thin air. Sometimes it works, and there's some prolific songwriters out there. My favorite songwriters are like that. They actually go to an office or a studio, and whoever they're collaborating with or alone, they start writing. They just sit down and start writing songs. And out of 100, 30 of them will be amazing or whatever. So there's something to be said about that. But
Oh, yeah.
I've just been yeah, I've always been that cat, you know.
Yeah.
I'm very emotional and very connected to my surroundings and life in a deeper way. And as I'm getting older, I'm understanding uh, how deep it is. I'm delving into myself and emotionally. And yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you
I,
mentioned both
I
of
am
those songs because we're going to play them in this interview so that the audience can hear it.
okay.
But I want to reflect back on Take
Great.
It to the Limit because I listen to that song every
Uh-huh.
day. I'm like hooked on it.
Oh,
And you say
all right.
something in that song. You say, look for the signs, they're all around. And to me, that hits me so personally because I look for signs everywhere I go. And it could be signs in a
Yeah.
conversation or signs walking down the street. It's so true. And I feel like you're like talking to me when literally I listen to
Well,
that
that's
song.
good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's the best compliment. Thank you, because that's what music should be. It should connect, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the other thing. I think we've gotten very complacent and very diluted, and not in a judgmental way when I say that. I'm included, because we get caught up in the everyday living, and we forget to. You know, how many times have you heard, "Stop and smell the roses"? You know, just stop everything, get rid of everything, and it gets increasingly harder to do that. But when you do, you'll find that there's a lot of magic all around you. You know, it's beautiful. I'm sitting here watching out the window, and this little hummingbird is flying around, and just talking to you and noticing the beauty of that. I know it sounds whatever,
No, it sounds
I should
beautiful.
be,
It's true though, because they
yeah,
say
and
communication goes through the universe, and a lot of signs come through
yes,
the form of animals, birds, and if
yes,
someone thinks of someone and literally there's, a butterfly there, or, they're missing their mom or their dad or their child or their spouse, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, this bluebird or this cardinal would not leave my windowsill. And they look back like three or
yes,
four times and it's still there and they're like, hello. So I believe that.
exactly.
Yeah. And the hummingbird is
It's
interesting
just,
that it's there because it's a very unique,
uh-huh.
you can't mistake that. It's a hummingbird, no
No,
other bird. Yeah.
we we have them in an abundance here. Sometimes I'm
Oh,
sitting in the
great.
back patio, and yeah, and we have little feeders and everywhere in the hood here. We have a lot of beautiful. And they're gorgeous. The colors, and when they stand still and they start feeding, you're going, look at that. That's just amazing. You know,
Beautiful.
I
Yeah.
love to see the slow mo film of birds like that, the hummingbirds in particular. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Beautiful.
stop, smell the roses,
That's right.
enjoy. And this is something from the 12-step program, because I'm a product of that. 36 years, September 20th, last September, and this year will be
Congratulations.
37.
Yep. That's
Thank God, by the grace
excellent.
of God. And
Yes.
yeah, and yeah, it's one of those
Yeah.
things. You know, life keeps moving all around
That's
us.
right. But just
Yeah, yeah,
reflecting
yeah.
back on your experience, I mean, you worked with some really big bands and some really amazing talent there. Can you reflect back
Hmm.
on like some things that you experienced during those times or things that somehow changed you as a performer, like either how you decided to formulate your solo career from things you picked up along the way? I mean, we're looking at Ted
Yeah,
Nugent and Whitesnake and Thin Lizzy. I mean, the list goes on and on with you.
yeah. Well, you know, of course, I'm gonna be inspired and affected in one way or another, and musically along the way. But a lot of highlights in my career, getting the call from David Coverdale, getting the call from Ted Nugent, from John Sykes. John Sykes came into the club where I was playing. I put a trio together, El Trio, with Joey Heredia and Renato Neto, and the word was out. We played on a Tuesday up in the valley, and I booked every Tuesday or every other Tuesday that we could, so that we could get an audience, because up in LA, you can imagine there's always something going on. So this is a little club, and I spoke to the owner, and he said, yeah, I'll give you whatever nights you want. and we started doing that. But so people would come into this place. It was called Lava Lee. It's no longer there. And, David Lee Roth came in to hear me play, audition me. David Coverdale came in. Al Jarreau was in. Chaka Khan would come in and sit in with us. Sheila E. and so on and so forth. And I'm dropping names just to give you an idea of what was going on. So a lot of highlights, John coming in there and saying, hey, I need a fretless bass player.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was playing a lot of fretless. I would say 80% of my work was fretless bass, and I still love it and I miss it. Because him and Tony and Carmine, something was going on. I'll never hear the facts, but you talk to everybody, everybody's got a different opinion. It's usually business. So he had a 4-album deal, I believe, with Geffen, and he was behind, and he heard about me, came in, heard me, and told me, asked me if I would come into the studio, and I said yes. And apparently he liked what I did, and then the rest is history. We ended up doing 5 or 6 albums after that with John Sykes. That was a highlight. And then he was my conduit, my connection to Thin Lizzy, because he was part of Thunder and Lightning, the last album that they did with Phil, while Phil Lynott was still alive. And so he introduced me to the boys, and I ended up working with Thin Lizzy for 20-something years, off and on. A lot of little stories along the way, but the highlights were that,
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I was getting on the map, I figure, and David Coverdale, DC, called me and introduced himself and said, I would love to have you come up to my place. Let's have lunch, let's have a talk. I said, yeah, of course. So we flew, had a great hang at his house. Mind-blowing. You can imagine me, a kid, watching Cal Jam with Deep Purple and Glenn Hughes and David, blowing my mind. This is even before I was just goofing around with music, and then all of a sudden I'm in his living room, in his studio, I'm in his home, and
surreal.
A lot of stuff like that started happening. Yeah. And so on and on and on and on. But I have to say this, I had gotten to a place in the business. I was already auditioning for some big artists. I was in people's Rolodex in those days. A lot of your listeners won't know what a Rolodex is.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was getting included in a lot of stuff that was happening in LA. I hooked up with this producer that was working for Motown, and brought me up to do sessions, and he was writing songs with songwriters and all that. And I was a session bass player and background vocalist. And he got me for cheap, but it didn't matter because I was there experiencing the whole thing. So all of a sudden I get called to, audition for Lionel Richie. Boom. I get it. And this is when, pop artists couldn't get bigger. It was Lionel Richie up there in the 80s, early 80s. And auditioning for people like Cher and all that. So I had gotten to that place, but emotionally, spiritually, I had gotten myself in trouble with alcoholism and drug addiction, really bad, out of control. So let's just say I started closing a lot of doors behind me, unfortunately. I lost the love and the lust for music and the respect for it. And anytime you have anything like that, any kind of addiction that just takes over, everything else will suffer, So I was in a real bad place, and this, I'm headed somewhere with this. In 86, I had the opportunity to get sober, and I got 8.5 months. I couldn't stay, so I got in more trouble. And then finally, divine intervention in my life came September 20th, 1987. And I was given the opportunity to stay sober, and I did, so it's been a while. And the point that I'm trying to make is that the first mind-blowing situation that happened to me, because I had kind of given up, I was asked to forget about the music industry or the environment in order to stay sober, that it was too toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be. But so my introduction to the business again came in the form of meeting Bill Ward from Black Sabbath. And I met him at a 12-step meeting, and we connected, and he expressed to me he was working on his first solo album ever. He wanted to hang out with sober musicians. He heard I was a bass player. Would I be interested in coming in and hearing this album? I said, yes. And then he called and said, bring a bass. Very casually. And I said, yeah, why not? With no expectations, nothing. I just like, wow, this is Bill Ward from Black Sabbath, and I'm going to hear his first effort, at being a solo artist. And I was blown away. The music was really cool. I realized what a deep artist he was, not only as a drummer, but a songwriter and a singer and lyricist. And we had a lot of things in common. So very casually, he says, there's a couple of tracks here that I'm not happy with. You want to plug in? And you can imagine, this is me, right? I'm like wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, and excited. I'm in my, my mid-20s, and I'm in the studio with Bill Ward. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened here? And I'm listening to tracks where Zakk Wylde is playing, Tim Bogart, some of my heroes, bass heroes, Tim Bogart, Jack Bruce, to mention a few. He even played some stuff that Ginger Baker played. I mean, it was just, the cream of the crop. All the players that I grew up listening to and looked up to. And I'm there, and he says, there's a track here, man. And he says, you want to see what you can do with it? I said, yeah, sure. So I plugged in. He would sing me the part, and I would play it. I don't like to talk about me a lot, but I will say that I have a good ear. I can hear notes and to kind of apply it on the bass. I know what notes they are, and I can find it very quick, whatever riff or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So he says, oh, yeah, and we heard it. That's cool. You want to do another? Yeah, and this went on for like 5 tracks or something. I don't know. We had a good day. It was a blast. And unbeknownst to me, he kept a lot of the stuff. So all of a sudden he calls. He says, Marco, I want to start playing and promote the album and support it. And I need a band. You want to be my bass player? I said, yes, of course. By then I was doing odds and ends to support myself. I had to keep a job. So I was doing construction
Mm-hmm.
and everything else that I could do to support myself. And so for me, it was like, awesome. So that was it. That was the beginning of what I call my new career, my new life, my sober existence on the planet. And I've been flying that flag since. So I'm forever grateful to Bill Ward.
Yes.
We've kind of disconnected along the way. I don't know why, but we will connect at some point.
Yeah. Well, this story and your experience was such a blessing. I mean, here you are being told to turn away from music, and in the midst of this, you find music. So it's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Can't thank you enough for sharing that.
Absolutely. And I really believe there's a reason for that. And it's become more and more evident as I'm around it, and some around the industry and the environment. I'm that guy, whether people like it or not. I'm that guy that walks around, talks about sobriety, and I show up and I try to prepare myself, and I respect the music industry, and I respect the ability that I have to make a living off of playing music and being creative. Gosh, what a privilege. It's a privilege,
It's amazing.
So I just got chills. It is a privilege, and when I'm at my best when I'm aware of that and I don't forget. And as life would have it, we're only human. I'm only human sometimes, and I go through a lot of changes and I forget about that. But interviews are good for me in that I kind of get in touch with a lot of stuff where I came from and what I'm doing and part of my existence. Isn't it true, Kathy, that we all, I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for the reason of who I am and why 100%. I'm here.
That's right. And at the same time, looking for the challenge. Like, okay, I did all this.
Yes.
Now what do I do next? What can I challenge myself with next, you know? Yeah.
Yes. And that's what my solo career represents, because having been to the summit, if you will, with all these projects, these massive, amazing artists. If I started a list, we'd be talking for an hour or two.
Yes.
I try to, like you said at the beginning, the question was, were you inspired or did you learn anything along the way? Of course,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a melting pot of experiences musically, creatively, and otherwise. And then it's time for you to grab all those colors, all those brushes, and this is your own canvas. So now you're painting your own picture. It's a trip,
Yes.
of course.
Oh, it's amazing.
Colors from Whitesnake, from Thin Lizzy. I learned so much about bass playing in a different way, because Phil was very unique. What he did with Brian Downey, those guys had a monstrous groove and pocket, and the way they approach the songs. And I will say this, and I say that with all the love and respect towards songwriters, guitar players, and singers, but for some reason, up until recently, bass players and rhythm sections and drummers are starting to get a little more credit. But for the longest time, we weren't part of the writing process. We were always the sidemen, And when you listen to all this music, you go back. For example, I had a chance to work with Neal and Jonathan, with Journey.
Oh.
And you're a fan of the music, right?
Yes.
You love the songs, and you just great songs.
Journey,
and
one
Steve
of my
Perry,
faves. Yes.
and Arnell right now is just killing it.
Oh,
and,
sure.
and Dean and John, all the guys.
Amazing live. They're amazing live. Yes.
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 Yeah. And so I got a chance to experience that, to be on stage and play the music. But my point is, I never really broke everything down until I had to learn it. And what Ross Valerie and Steve Smith were doing, wow, amazing stuff, man. It was so intricate, so important to the foundation of the songwriting.
Yeah.
Bass parts that are anthems, and drum parts. You could see the people playing air bass and drum and air drums when the fills would come in, and this and that, and amazing.
Yeah.
So I got to experience that. I also got to hang with Greg Raleigh, who was one of the original founders, together with Neal, the Journey cats. And rhythm sections are starting to get a little more credit, bass players and drummers, and wow, online I see, I'm blown away. There's so many cats, even young girls, 14 and 13, playing amazing bass stuff, like mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
And drummers.
It seems like a lot of younger people are getting involved. I don't know if it's like the American Idol or The Voice, but I've noticed that as well. Younger
It's social
people.
media.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
I think it's social media.
You're right.
And I saw this with my daughter, because my daughter, when she started playing, I got her the first instrument was a ukulele, like little girl, and I got her a ukulele. I would go on tour and come back, 8 weeks later, and she'd be online. She learned 5 songs. And I'm like, whoa, where'd you learn that? And then she would show me. And everything's there. All the tabs are there, the breakdown. There's instructors, amazing players giving you the download of how to learn this and how to play. So it's like, wow. Then I'd walk away. So what do you want? I got her a piano. Well, I got us a piano. The house didn't have a piano at the time. And, I'd go and come back, and she'd be playing Queen stuff. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I'm not saying this because she's my daughter, but really good. I'm
That's
like,
great.
Wow.
Yeah. That is
And
so
then
great.
I want a guitar now. Yeah, and I want a banjo, and I want a harmonica, and I want this, and I want that, and I try to provide that, because it's easy for me.
Well, you're a great dad.
So, well, No, I understand, music is like that. And so my garage, which is where my workstation is filled with all this stuff.
Wow.
I've had to get a storage place because, yeah. But, so yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip, music and life and the whole thing about it,
Yeah. So before we go, because I know you have some solo touring come up. So again, please plug your websites and your social medias and your upcoming stuff.
Yeah. Well, go to marcomendoza.com. Everything should be there. All the, everything is there. It'll guide you and you get to see and hear stuff. All the links are there. That's pretty much, what it is. And please check out my music to your listeners. If you haven't, I'm trying to make an effort to get on the map, on the radar here in the U.S. We have a few shows coming up with Graham Bonnet. Anybody in the Chicago, Detroit area, L.A. We just did L.A. with Eric Sardinas, but Chicago.
All right, great.
And Detroit, I'll be coming there. This is 25. Oh my gosh. I'll be coming there with on the 22nd, playing in Detroit at the Token Lounge with Graham Bonnet, which is a great privilege and a great treat for me. It's going to be cool. And then on the 23rd, this is March 22nd and 23rd in Chicago at Reggie's. So, yeah, we're trying to get another date on the 24th. We're having some issues yet, but we'll see. Just, again, stay tuned to marcomendoza.com and, live life to the fullest. Always take it to the limit when you can and a little more. And never give up on your hopes and dreams. Always shoot for the stars, if you can.
That's great.
Always.
Yes. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for having this interview with me. You're amazing. I listen to your music every day. So thank you again, Marco.
Thank you.
We're going to take it out
Thank you.
we're going to take it out with Ticket to the Limit by Marco Mendoza. Thank you again so much, Marco.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pay attention now. you gotta